welcome to Playwright, a podcast about creating and sharing new ways to play. My name is Ryan Hamann. You can call me H.
And I'm Ryan Quintal. You can call me Q. H, recently, the Epic Store was giving away Civ 6, and so inside of the Kane and Rinse Slack, I proposed, we'll see how nervous the other shows get with this, but I proposed a show v show, a Kane and Rinse show off, if you will, where each of the shows is managing a civilization in Civ. So we would kind of co-manage a civilization, and we just stream a big long campaign of civilization.
How does Civ multiplayer, I guess it would just, work like any multiplayer game where everybody kind of sits down and controls their own civilization. Is it asynchronous? Do you all have to be logged on at the same time?
I believe, it may have changed because I haven't played a ton of Civ 6, but I have played the previous entries, and the previous entries allowed both a online multiplayer, so like you get to go, and then both people say their turns are over, then the AI goes, and then it's kind of you're in control of the actions on your turn again. Or, and I know Civ 4 had this, I doubt that this is a feature anymore, but there was an asynchronous mode where you just kind of logged into the save, made your move, and then it like alerted the other person. Although I don't know how, I guess they'd have to check it. You would think with modern infrastructure, they could probably have like a mobile app going, hey, your turn, it's time for your turn or whatever in Civ.
Yeah.
Civ 4 lets you do it via email. How wild is that?
That's pretty cool. Do you have a preferred civilization to play as?
I don't know, but of course I was thinking, to represent Playwright in the best possible way, that we would try and go for a cultural victory. Something where we're just spreading our creative nature across the land. But I don't know who that would be. I know Gandhi used to be pretty strong as a cultural victory person. I don't know what the current meta is. Do you have a preference?
No, it's been a long time since I played any of the Civ games, and kind of my first memory of Civilization was playing Civilization Revolution on the iPhone back when that first came out.
Yeah.
I got like really, really into that like the first night that I downloaded it. And I had this strange experience where I was playing it like in bed right before going to sleep, and it was getting to be like really, really late. And I was like, okay, I have to stop doing this right now.
Right.
I'm gonna put the phone down after just, a couple more turns. And I, continued playing for a little while longer. And I thought, okay, now is really time for me to stop. And I realized that I had put my phone down the first time I had thought of that like 20 minutes ago. And I had like confused myself into thinking that I was still playing. It was super weird, like a combination of being out of my mind tired and, like how your brain kind of rehearses video games sometimes.
Yes.
when you're just like exploring a new thing. It was the weirdest experience. I think I had that like 2 or 3 cycles of like, okay, I'm done, putting my phone down, and then thinking that I was still going.
I feel like I may have shared this anecdote before on the show, but that study about mice and like going through mazes. Did I say this already to us before?
I don't think so.
So there was essentially a book that was talking about how our brains behave and rehearse, like you were talking about. Primarily the method that we rehearse with is with our sleep. So when we're very tired or sleeping, essentially all day they ran mice through a maze, and the mice were varying degrees of success with it. But then they also monitored the mice's brain patterns as they were the mice brain patterns, I guess, when they were sleeping. And what they found is the pattern that they saw when the mice was running, or the mouse were running the maze, it was being played out over and over and over again and fast forward. And so, that was obviously they translated that, or it turns out to be true in humans, that essentially what your brain is doing is just fast forward rehearsing a skill that is important to you or that you're trying to learn. And it especially does it when you're sleeping. So maybe you've had that phenomenon where you are smashing your head against a wall in a video game. You're like, I just can't get it. I know this is true of me and Tony Hawk's video games. And then, get a good night's sleep, get some water in you, some food, and then come back to it the next day. And lo and behold, something clicks that perhaps didn't before.
Yeah, that's a weird one. Anyways, let's get into some video game pitches for today. I believe that I'm going first, so I will put forward another kind of fun multiplayer premise where more kind of a accompanying technology rather than a game itself, but essentially you are player 2. It randomly shuffles you around games that people are playing via the cloud, and you play a round of whatever game it puts you in, and it keeps tally of all of your victories and losses. So you could jump from Call of Duty to Killer Instinct to volleyball games, like whatever it is that people are playing, it will just kind of randomly drop you into a game. So starting the clock there.
I think there's benefits and drawbacks to the fragmentation of the video game industry in terms of all these big publishers who are always competing for our attention. But one of the misses in that world that we live in is that there's not really like here's how good a person is at a series of, or an entire genre of games, right? Like there is no win-loss ratio that you have to track across like all the fighting games that you've been kind of playing through to experience lately. Mm-hmm. And so this idea of an external or sort of you'd have to have an industry standard like agreed upon login or something that lets somebody really like track the meta of how good they are at all these different games.
Yeah, so it would be the game would have to understand kind of it would have to like recognize the win and loss conditions of each game, and it would be interesting if it could kind of carry forward more stats from each different game, like number of steps walked would be really high in a round of Splatoon, but it'd be really low in a round of Tekken.
Oh, so you're not even necessarily thinking about like these being a shared genre. I'm thinking like Tekken and Splatoon is like a very two diverse sets of games, and you want to know like...
Yeah. I just wanted to be kind of like a shuffle button, you get dropped into anything and you just kind of have to react.
Oh, did I miss that? Is this thing launching games as well?
Well, it's... So it's kind of like the cloud streaming technology, so like Stadia or xCloud or something like that. And it would essentially just be kind of like sniffing out games that need like a player 2 or like a lobby that needs to be filled, and then would randomly drop you into one of those games.
That's cool. I know that like Game Pass has that surprise me button, and I'm not quite sure what it does right now. I think it maybe just takes me to a random game page. I assume it doesn't launch a game because I'd have to install it. But yeah, in the future, something like that truly being able to just drop you into a game, right? Because there'd be no install, no nothing to worry about. I think it would be really interesting to have so many games have lobby systems to varying levels of success, and to be able to go to an app or a website and log in and like both have the random experience, and also just to be able to say like, hey, who needs a co-op partner right now? Like who needs a player 2? And as long as you've connected your whatever account, Stadia, xCloud, Xbox game streaming, whatever they want to call it, just to immediately launch the game and be like, hey, this player's connecting, and have it be super seamless. That would be awesome.
So what kind of stats would you be interested in tracking from game to game, just, on a purely curiosity-led level?
I mean, if the website or if this experience is built around co-op, I wonder if it would really be fun to have like a lifetime assist ratio, almost like the way torrents have like seeders and leechers. How many hours you've spent asking for help or receiving help and giving help, and then like ranking people on like how I guess selfless they are in some ways, because not all games, as we know, let the player to progress their own character. Right? Sometimes you're just this unprogressible thing that shows up in somebody else's game to help them for a moment. And so I do like the idea of being able to label people as helpful, or to have a leaderboard of like, hey, this person, helps way more than they ask for help.
There's a system in Journey where if you come back and play through the game multiple times, you know the solutions to all of the little puzzles, and you can help other people along. You're given a different colored robe if you've 100% of the game, and then still kind of continue to play along with other players. So if you ever see one of the characters in a white robe, then you know, like, this is somebody who's mastered it and is just doing it out of the goodness of their own heart to help other people along.
That's so cool.
So yeah, it'd be neat if there were systems like that could be incorporated in these games, little title rankings or little aesthetic changes that can be made that signify either somebody who's in co-op games there to kind of like help and assist and improve in themselves, or in versus games, maybe it's just like a note that like this is somebody who's kind of wandering between worlds. You know, this is somebody who's not necessarily knowing what they're signing up for right now, and they could be an easy victory, or there could be somebody who is a master at this type of game.
One of those damn no skins in Fortnite.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that's cool. And then like potentially to have a little pie chart or a breakdown of like this person spends X percent of their hours in a particular genre or a particular game. I like the idea of being able to sign up for games too. Like, hey, whenever somebody wants a player 2 in Mortal Kombat, or to like get alerts like there's a player 2, you know, or somebody's looking to play Mortal Kombat and you can jump in. And like with fighting games, it's more like I need an opponent, right? And this is like almost a volunteering website, which is kind of interesting. Thinking of it as like a community service almost, but for gaming communities.
Let's see. So there could be internal achievements. There can be, let's see, what else could make this more interesting? It feels like such a contained idea already.
Well, I think one thing that streaming games could really leverage is the idea of like asking for a coach. So potentially you're playing a single player game. Maybe, you know, let's use Civ as an example. I'm in a particularly tricky military situation. I'm not quite sure how to get out of it. There's no reason why in game streaming technology you couldn't connect me with somebody who can also just essentially attach themselves to my same session. They're not necessarily even a player in the game, but they get us on, you know, voice and text chat. And you and I can like analyze the situation together, or, you know, instead of like, it's proactive in many ways, other than like right now you have to go and look up a wiki or look up a guide, where instead you could be like, press the help button in game and then someone will pop in and be like, hey, what's going on? And you're like, I just don't understand how to get this resource or where to find this thing. And someone can just like actually see what you're seeing on the screen. It's like a screen share, but it's all done through the cloud, and offer assistance. When you start thinking about the application of like all this cloud stuff, there's actually a whole batch of new experiences that we can really have with it.
I mean, a lot of the stuff that Google kind of promised in their Stadia reveal still sounds like pretty interesting ideas that I'd like to see come to fruition. This idea that you can kind of like create a bookmark for almost like a save state in a game that people can load up and play on their own computers. Like obviously none of that ever came to pass, at least so far, with right. What Stadia is currently offering. Like they significantly overpromised for what they've been able to deliver so far. I mean, based on how Stadia is doing, I don't know how much of that we're ever going to really see, but there's some really cool ideas in there that I'd love to see explored more fully.
Yeah, I mean, like that would be super powerful. And all the stuff where like you can see a ton of, like you can just see an entire other player's screen, and you can do split screen co-op and that sort of stuff, but it's not additionally taxing on your own personal hardware, is another big promise that, you know, I think like in some ways I was hoping that Stadia would have a fresh enough spin on split screen that split screen had a chance of coming back, but yeah, it's not quite back. And maybe this site could do, or this experience, whatever it is, could do just that.
Let's go ahead and close that down and come up with a name for it. So I guess if we want to take a Ghostbusters angle, we can call it Crossing the Streams.
Oh gosh, that's good. It's also a little bit gross, but Stream Crosser or something like that. That's right. You'd have to have a slick title, whatever it is.
Okay, I think I'll do it. Let's move on. What are you bringing us today?
Well, like you, I don't know. This is kind of a game, but it also is revisiting a concept or an idea more than anything else, which is it's been a long time since we've had anything from our good friends at Maxis that resemble the medieval expansion for The Sims. The Sims Medieval Deluxe was it an entire game, or was it just an expansion pack on The Sims? I think it was a full game.
Yeah, it was a kind of a standalone experience. I know that they sold it separately on consoles, and you can download it as a standalone on PC. I don't know if you owned the base software on PC, whether you can kind of like jump between experiences without closing the software, though.
I think after all this time, The Sims has become, with all of its expansions and with all the work and complexities that are in it, they're really the only people left in this space making this type of game. And so I was wondering, we can either pitch like potentially talk about different genres and experience, or not genres, but places and times and settings and wrappers for The Sims, or we could go a deep dive on one. And of course I was going for the like sci-fi humans journeying into the unknown sort of version of The Sims, where you're building and maintaining your starship and you're going on little away missions and stuff, just the same way you would go out for a night on the town in The Sims. And of course you'd be working your job on the ship, whatever that happens to be. But yeah, we could do medieval. We could talk about other settings that The Sims could potentially work in. I love the idea of a horror Sims as well.
Yeah, so other settings. I mean, the Sims frequently kind of dabbles with horror stuff, whether it's the traditional, I don't remember, the Goth family or something like that.
Yeah.
Are found in the base game maps often. They have a kind of fun, elaborate mansion. You get a fair smattering of ghosts and grim reapers and stuff like that in the main games. There was a kind of smaller Stranger Things themed expansion to the Sims 4 as well. I'm curious, like what what affordances does kind of packaging this as like a standalone thing give us versus just kind of like bolting in new items and things into the main game?
Yeah, it's a good question. Like, is this just a, add-on to the current iteration of The Sims? But what I do like about the idea of maybe going back to medieval or going into the sci-fi realm is building in maybe traditional elements that you'd get in like 4X strategy games, where if it's a medieval, you can think of like the Crusader of Kings. You have to worry about like who is going to inherit what from your children and your lineage, and you're playing sort of the Game of Thrones-esque politics of that sort of stuff. And then on the sci-fi bend of things, I like the away missions are not only potentially like maybe a little bit more actiony, a little bit more, scanny, shooty, but there's also the sort of diplomatic negotiations, and maybe you're trying to, the way to like expand land or potentially gain access to new worlds is to bring people into your coalition of planets or something like that. I mean, I think we saw with the like eco lifestyle expansion that they're doing recently, and they've done this in the past, where they're adding mechanics and they're adding systems in, but they're all kind of still built around the fundamental aspect of a neighborhood that you're living in. And I think that, being set on a moving vehicle in the case of space, or having to manage multiple kingdoms or an ever-growing kingdom in the case of medieval, would make the core game feel different enough.
It would be interesting to go back to the civilization talk from earlier, to be able to kind of jump between multiple different like ancient civilizations in a way, kind of like an Assassin's Creed type of thing, where you really get a sense of like what the architecture and lifestyle and people and the dress and everything were like from like maybe just like a handful of 5 different civilizations. So you could have like a medieval European type of setting, like a feudal Japan, or like an ancient Egyptian type of setting. And I don't know if they would ever kind of cross over with one another, but it would just be neat to have kind of like a little bit of a slice of life.
Yeah, and one of the things that's like interesting to me is looking at the way Ubisoft has developed their games over the past decade plus, where it seems like Ubisoft got good at rendering a highly detailed, beautiful map, placing, people and objects within it, giving sort of the concept of markers, unlocking, and progression trees on top. And then they've taken that very core and you see it split out into Ghost Recon, The Division, Assassin's Creed. I'd put money on we'll probably see a Splinter Cell in the near future that might be more open world, a lot more Metal Gear Solid, the latest Metal Gear Solid 5, than the kind of traditional Splinter Cell, though I could be wrong. But it's like they've taken a core thing, and I think that The Sims 4, as it stands right now, is an interesting like core engine, and then to let each sort of cut of it go down more of chase down its own logical mechanics route and grow them as tendrils like that. Mm-hmm. What other sorts of genre? I mean, like, that's like a time period thing, future and past. I wonder what would feel really different with The Sims. What could we be? Could we do a Sims, but it's all animals or something? Almost bring back a Zoo Tycoon sort of feel to it.
That would be interesting. I wonder, because either you put a lot of human attributes onto the animals, like a Lion King type of thing, or it becomes a little bit more kind of like a survival of the fittest, like a Tokyo Jungle. So like how much personality and kind of human-like characteristics would you want to imbue if you went down this direction?
It's a good question. Like, do you do, I also like the idea of potentially setting it in the ocean and doing a full, like, Finding Nemo sort of thing where you get the Pixar anthropomorphic fish. You have like grumpy fish and happy fish, forgetful fish, and all these sorts. And like a Sims neighborhood, you can have areas of the ocean, the deep, the coral reef, and be like building different sorts of communities of fish. But of course, the fish need to potentially occasionally consume each other to survive, or have things like that. So, or you could just have a really chill fish simulator. I feel like that even with Feeding Frenzy, that was something that we don't dabble in fish games very often, do we?
Well, that's the thing is that, for kind of a social simulator like this, like The Sims, it's fun. You get attached to these characters. It feels like in any kind of animal or fish scenario, it's hard to avoid the experience of like the characters eating each other.
Right.
So I can imagine like somebody getting really into their little fish world and then like their favorite character just gets eaten by a neighbor, which is not something you regularly encounter in The Sims.
Well, maybe then you go a little bit more human adjacent and do like a Amazon forest gorilla type of simulator where you actually play as gorillas and you're building these small communities, but of course very naturalistic, set in the jungle, and you can even do the sorts of planet Earth-esque elaborate mating rituals and stuff, so you can still woohoo in the animal simulator.
Yeah, it would be kind of fun to well, I guess how naturalistic do you see this being? Do you want it to just be like living in the jungle and kind of like living amongst the trees and maybe like making little shelters of leaves for yourself? Or do you want to make kind of like Gilligan's Island style radios out of coconuts and, houses out of bamboo and stuff like that, kind of take it in a more silly direction?
I think the silly direction would map a little bit more to what The Sims does well, just in terms of that sort of, it can be slapstick at different times. I also like the idea, like, if you want to keep it humans, to make it a little bit less ridiculous what's going on, maybe medieval is not far enough back, right? Go all the way down to the beginning of mankind and have, people living in caves and huts and, building a community with really, really limited things. And actually then all the communication being grunts and weird noises would actually make complete sense.
There was a game that came out last year called Ancestors, the Humankind Odyssey, in which is a kind of a third person kind of missing link type of simulator where you play kind of like a early, half monkey, half person, just trying to survive out in the jungle. It's made by one of the people who created Assassin's Creed and kind of controls in that way. But I think something that takes that setting, that injects a little bit more kind of humor and levity to it in the same way that The Sims does, make this whole kind of like evolutionary process really kind of approachable and silly and fun. Just give you an opportunity to, not necessarily be like in the thick of the struggle to survive, but more just kind of like a Flintstones type of scenario of like, early humanity or, different aspects of the animal kingdom, but living in a more kind of domestic. I guess we're just describing Animal Crossing at this point.
Well, but I think Animal Crossing has its own set of mechanics. And I think talking back about the base for a moment, like you could say the Sims version of the Sims, like the core of what the Sims mainline series stays as, is really about living in a neighborhood, having relationships with neighbors, having a family, and having a job, right? Like those things to me are the pillars. And then but the core of what you're doing is really moving around these characters, creating them, having them have relationships and that sort of stuff. So to go to the Animal Kingdom thing, having a job probably is not, it doesn't map onto that. So then you find different mechanics that sort of make sense in these different genres. And you could say, with like Neanderthals or something, you have hunters and gatherers and those sorts of things. But once you get into, The Sims does not express a society without work, for example. So, being able to play with that by genre shifting, I think would be interesting.
That's all the time we have there. Let's close it down and come up with a name.
I feel like it would be good to have The Sims and then have other words that rhyme with Sims to describe the other genres.
Yeah, I was just trying to think. I'm not coming up with a lot.
There's already something called the Mims or something, isn't there?
I don't know. Isn't that a rapper?
Oh, the Mims? Cool.
Mims? I don't know. I could just be misremembering.
Maybe it's more there's the Sims medieval whatever. We could do the Sims early man and the Sims sci-fi future or something like that. The Sims in space.
It could be like the Sims primeval if medieval is the anchor point there.
It's weird. It's like a multiple. We both pitched unconventional things this week. The Sims : more Sims. The Sims.
There should be 7 Deadly Sims. That would be
yes.
That would be a fun spin on. I wonder what that would entail. All right, let's go ahead and move over to the community and see what people have in store for us today. All right, let's go with this. Let's go with this newest email. I don't remember if I think we've heard from this individual before, but this comes from La Fromagerie London. So some sort of a dairy and cheese type of mailing list that we ended up on from merry old England. Says bank holiday weekend, picnics and barbecues. Let's see, it is set to sizzle in London this bank holiday weekend. Take a walk in the sunshine and stop by La Fromagerie Highbury and La Fromagerie Marylebone. Do email your shopping order for collection if you can. On arrival, there's coffee to go, smoked salmon bagels, ice cold square root sodas, and pots of ice cream from Ice Cream Union. Everything you could need for your social distancing picnic, including lots of chilled rosé. We just received beautiful goat cheeses from Le Petit Jabron Alps. There's all these names I'm having trouble with.
It's very fancy.
Let's see, so there's goat cheeses, generous shavings of, oh boy, I don't know any of these words. These are all just fancy words for cheeses and foods and French things that I've never heard of before.
And you know what? I don't even attempt it. So you're doing great.
Let's see what they have in the summer produce section. We have everything you need for your bank holiday weekend. Fresh peaches, apricots, and nectarines, wonderful grilled on the barbecue. Enjoy with burrata or mozzarella di bufala and fresh mint. Juicy orange flesh melons draped with serrano ham, ripe vine tomatoes, and creamy avocados with crumbled barrel-aged feta. We also welcome new season English strawberries in 1 kilogram punnets at 11 quid, grown on a strawberry farm located in the beautiful Yorkshire countryside. We've made lovely strawberry tarts, or just enjoy simply with good pour of Ivy House double cream. Sadly, it's final call for Pips Essex asparagus with the last delivery coming in next Tuesday, then that's the end of the season until next year. Their asparagus has been truly exceptional, and this year we send our thanks to the amazing growers at Thorgood Farm who made it happen. Okay, let's see. We have a lot of words there. Let's start the clock and see what we can come up with.
I mean, the one for listener context here, the best part about this email is that there are just words like English strawberries that are in bold for some reason. So if you just read the bold stuff, it's mostly talking about different types of cheeses and produce, which are we doing like a potential something set in a vineyard here or in some sort of like farm?
Yeah, I mean, potentially. We could do a farming type of simulator. Let's think outside the box. What other types of genres can we bake into this? I mean, selling food, consuming food. You know, there's one of the things that's really interesting about another medium in film. I was thinking back to Ratatouille. Actually, this does have a games connection. One of my friends in college, her uncle was a famous animator, and they invited, her and a group of friends, which included, me, because we were in kind of like next door neighbors and did a lot of things together like freshman year, to go over to their house for Easter.
Okay.
And so I went over and spent some time kind of talking with this animator, and apparently he's, he did one of the primary animators for The Iron Giant, and did a video game called Insanely Twisted Shadow Planet. Really interesting guy. Really enjoyed speaking with him. He also did the sequences in Ratatouille in which the Remy the Rat would kind of have these what is it called? These kind of extrasensory reactions to the tastes of food, and you would see in his mind kind of all these shapes kind of like swirl together in different colors as he describes the food that he's eating. And it would be interesting if in a similar way you could do something that kind of like represents flavors and combinations, things that are difficult to display within a traditional video game format. Yeah, I'm wondering if we can do some sort of a sensory display of flavor.
What if you gave people, I'm almost thinking about like a medium molecule dreams like set of tools, and said to them, okay, here are like produce, and you have to describe the taste of these things by writing a little piece of music or showing a series of colors, or showing a few, like you can associate a few objects together or something like that. Or potentially, could you like paint a sphere or paint a cube to represent like what this thing actually tastes?
There's another game I wanted to highlight here, which does a good job of a similar type of thing, called Luxurious Superbia. Have you heard of this one before?
No.
It's
Luxurious
essentially kind of
Superbia.
like I don't want to call it like a hallway. There's a certain type of game usually you see within the kind of like dodge 'em up or music genres, where you're kind of like floating down like an endless hallway, and there's usually like things that you have to either navigate like a ship between obstacles, or you have to trigger certain notes and things by moving like throughout this kind of circular hallway. It's similar to that. It's kind of an endless pathway that you're going down, and as you are kind of traversing this, there are several kind of nodes on the walls of this hallway that you can kind of trigger either via touch inputs or mouse, whatever you're using to play the game. And it would cause like color to restore in various kind of areas of this hallway, of the walls. And it's supposed to kind of represent like female masturbation, actually. Like,
wow,
ways of like creating like sensory experiences, and you're supposed to kind of like, to maximize your score, create kind of anticipation and keep from like fully maxing out and going into this this state, which is kind of like the release in a way. And so, it's ways of kind of like of dialing up the tension and without fully kind of like breaking through. So it's an interesting game, and it kind of communicates these through its visuals feelings that aren't, visual senses.
I wonder if you could like almost design a res like game, and that sounds a little bit like what you're describing here, but you make a res style game, but you base the flow of enemies or the music that you're making, again, kind of connecting back some of the earlier stuff on the show to the brain waves that somebody experiences as they consume or enjoy the food. Or maybe every food has a stage of like sight, smell, taste, and touch. And so every level is divided up into those sections, and the waves of enemies or the flow of the music and stuff, you do like beautiful compositions under each. That the asparagus arrangement is going to be a banger. And you design these levels, you like craft them really tightly, and then like you just build a game that is entirely like the level select is this beautiful like farm stand, and you can like walk around it and select a piece of produce and then play its level and experience it.
There's a type of usually it's like a mini game within games, like a hacking or breaking into a vault or something like that, where you are trying to like match different types of sine waves. And, it's usually kind of like dialing up multiple dials and stuff to, affect the kind of frequency and the amplitude of these waves until they match the target waves that you're trying to hit. I wonder if there's an aspect of that where you have this very kind of abstract visual that represents a certain flavor profile that you're going for, and you just have to keep kind of like adding different ingredients and kind of counterbalancing the fats and the salts and the acids and stuff that kind of can play against each other to create this flavor profile that you're going for, and baking and all these things that change the profile of a piece of food. And eventually, you kind of perhaps learn a thing or two about cooking as well along the way.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I almost think too that you could do something like that, and then also have maybe you play these levels, or you solve these puzzles to earn pieces of produce, and then you could build almost like a Moonlighter back end to this thing, where as you're earning this produce, you're also running this little farm stand, and people come in and they say to you, hey, do you have this square root sodas in stock or whatever? And if you don't, like they leave as a customer. So you're like earning money to potentially unlock new puzzles or levels to solve and play, and then earning the produce on the back end to therefore like sell in your shop. And so depending on the seasonal demand of people, just the same way that you get seasonal demand for these vegetables, then you can potentially have like, the summer season and the winter season, and make someone have a different type of level that they want to solve, or type of produce that they need to grind.
Or this could be that you're a cook on a space station or something, and you don't have any of these raw ingredients. All that you have are kind of like the most basic types of, salts and vinegars and I mean, just like very base level things like that. And so you want to recreate meals that people are kind of used to having back home and create these flavors, but you have to do it with like a very basic set of materials, and trying to get as close as you can to reproducing. Always impresses me whenever candy is able to taste like watermelon or something like that. It's like, how do they do that? Do they just kind of like take taste samples along the way? Are they comparing it against their subjective sense of what a watermelon tastes like.
Right. Or a panel of tasters.
Yeah.
Probably. That's cool. And you know what? That's funny. That's very Star Trek Voyager. The character Neelix, who is sort of the ship chef, only has access to either they can't use the replicators because it uses too much energy. So basically when they go to a planet and it has usable flora and fauna, they have to take it, and then he has to figure out how to take these like very strange things and turn it into a lasagna. So that's a really cool angle of it. And I think like making your thing a very, very fancy London sort of, I guess, this isn't a patisserie. This is maybe it's just like a general store or something. I don't know how to describe this kind of restaurant thing, but like a little pastry / food shop where you're serving things to people with unusual ingredients is cool.
Let's go and stop that one and give it a name.
I feel like having the word connoisseur in there would be cool.
I was also thinking of, what is it that Guy Fieri says, Flavor Country?
A Flavor Town. Flavor
Town, that's it.
Flavor Town is pretty good. Flavor Town, maybe, is there another word? It doesn't fully describe it to me, just Flavor Town.
Yeah.
Is the official job called, yeah, I guess it is called a taste tester.
Taste tester. That's kind of interesting. We can utilize that. Let's call it taste tester. Let's shut it down. Thank you very much, La Fromagerie from London, for emailing that in, or for somebody presumably signing us up to their newsletter. If you would like to email us a video game pitch, you can do so by going to playwrightcast@gmail.com. You can go to playwrightcast.com/pitch to write one into our website, or tweet us at playwrightcast. We will read your video game ideas in a future show.
Special thank you to PROTODOME for the use of our theme song, Hello World, off the album Blue Noise. It's very good. Go give it a listen. And while your ears are busy, why not go and check out the Cane and Rinse podcast, or the Sausage Factory, or Sound of Play. Even more listening pleasure.
To take us out of the show today, I have a redacted game for you. This is, let's just get to it. So, strap in for a ride that will find you infiltrating and taking down the Redacted, a gang that has grown up amidst Redacted's illicit, redacted landscape. You must establish your reputation in the underground Redacted scene and subvert their activities city by city throughout a fully open world Redacted. Maneuver through the Redacteds of Redacted and Redacted, Redacted down to sun-drenched Redacted, or trek through the picturesque plateaus of Redacted. Each location comes with its own set of surprises and Redacted challenges to tackle. On your journey, you will confront other Redacted on the Redacted, all potentially worthy companions to team up with, or future rivals to take down.
Okay, I feel like that last part was a big hint. Because up until that point, my mind was circling around, it sounded almost like a GTA or a, well, I guess it could still be a Crackdown, potentially. Am I in the ballpark here thinking about Crackdown?
Not just yet.
Okay. I'm thinking about sun-drenched and plateaus. There's an air of, but there's also crime. So then I start getting into like a Bethesda method of thinking, where I'm trying to think of something that has like an open world. Am I right by thinking an open world? Because it feels like you can kind of
open world is a part of the pitch here.
Okay, so and now I'm trying to think of games with gangs.
Yeah,
right,
this is not an aspect of the game that I remembered.
Oh, okay. Well, then that's interesting. Because the gang stuff is what first we had the open world comment, and then I went into gangs, and I was like, okay, this is like 1 + 1 = Crackdown. If I'm not in the ballpark with those type of things, it described me. Is this a racing game / driving game? Okay. That makes me start feeling like it's a Need for Speed. Potentially a Need for Speed Underground?
No, not that. Not that.
Okay. Am I warm with Need for Speed?
You're getting much closer.
Okay. Because the gangs say territory, it says property. I wonder if I'm fixating on the right stuff here. And then it feels like I can team up with other...
find you infiltrating and taking down the Redacted, a gang that has grown up amidst Redacted's illicit Redacted landscape. You must establish your reputation in the underground Redacted scene and subvert their activities city by city throughout a fully open world Redacted.
Okay. The underground racing scene, presumably. And I just guessed Need for Speed Underground. It's not Need for Speed Underground.
All right. I don't think that one was open world, actually.
Got it. Oh, it's not a Burnout, is it? I feel like that's
not Burnout.
Away. I wonder if it's not a Need for Speed, it might be a racing game that I have not.
You'll definitely know of this one, at least.
Okay. Man, all right. I just need to get my 2 more guesses out here. Is it The Crew or something?
Yes, it is The Crew.
Oh, all right.
Ubisoft's 2014 The Crew.
Oh, wow. I did not recall there being a heavy gang aspect of that at all.
The description is: strap in for a ride that will find you infiltrating and taking down the 510s, a gang that has grown up amidst Detroit's illicit street racing landscape.
Of course, yeah.
You must establish your reputation in the underground racing scene and subvert their activities city by city throughout a fully open-world United States. Maneuver through the bustling streets of New York City and Los Angeles, drive down the sun-drenched Miami Beach, or trek through the picturesque plateaus of Monument Valley. Every location comes with its own set of surprises and driving challenges to tackle. On your journey, you will confront other drivers on the road, all potentially worthy companions to team up with or future rivals to take down.
So, get this, that answer didn't come from me having played The Crew, because I haven't played The Crew.
Mm-hmm.
It came from my read of you as my fellow friend and co-host. I was like, all right, what racing games would H pick here? But, I have no excuse anymore, because Xbox had this great, I think they called it Start Your Engines sale. And for $25, I ended up getting Crazy Taxi, Trackmania Turbo, Trials Fusion, The Crew, Onrush.
Nice.
So
that's a
huge
good
haul. And I just started playing a bunch of them. You saw me tweet the other day.
Yeah.
And Trackmania is super good. It had this crazy difficulty spike that I had a hard time with, but love that. And I'm sure I'd like Onrush too. And so The Crew, it's worth it. Yeah.
Yeah. It's really interesting. It's kind of like an okay racing game, but I love it as kind of like a road trip simulator in a way, where you just kind of get in your mind, like, you start the game in Detroit, and at that point, like, once the world kind of opens up, you can really just drive anywhere you want to. And so it's really exciting to just be like, I wonder what LA looks like. I wonder what New Orleans looks like, or Seattle, or, whatever kind of cities you want to see, and just to, set the waypoint on your map. And then it like literally takes like, 45 minutes to drive there. And it's like, you feel like you're going on a journey. You're going through the mountains. You're going through all these different like parts of the United States. It's exciting.
That might be the perfect game to play under this quarantine. I feel like you're actually getting out there and seeing some stuff.
I've been actually, I just recently reinstalled. I haven't replayed it just yet, but I've been really kind of dying to get back into Need for Speed The Run. It's just the same sort of thing.
Why?
It's, that is so that's another, not an open world racing game. It's a very kind of like constructed track-based racing game, where it's basically like a cannonball run from San Francisco to New York, I think. And so it just takes you on a route through the whole United States. And it's just like, I just want to see, the United States kind of evolve around me as I'm racing through all these different cities and the different highways and stuff. And, it's not, it's meant to be played kind of like in one stretch, not in one sitting necessarily, but you don't replay courses over and over. You just play the course once, and then that is your ranking. You start in like 300th place or something like that. And then through the course of the entire like one long race, you try to work your way up.
Wow. Was this the most recent Need for Speed game?
Oh, no. This one's back
is
in
an
the
old one.
360 generation, but I've got it on Origin, so, could still probably get it looking pretty good.
I think I'm sure the crew has managed to do this better because it's probably more condensed, but it's very strange for me at this point to be able to say, as someone who is basically driven from coast to coast in the United States, boy, there is a lot of boring, highway or cornfield to sort of get past. A good chunk of your driving will be trying not to fall asleep or keep yourself entertained. But to be able to have it in a, it's like that direct injection, the video game heightened realism could be really cool.
Anyways, I'm curious to hear what you think about that. Once you get around to playing it, maybe next week we can do a recap on some of these racing and driving games.
Hey,
and
if
stuff
it's multiplayer, I've got the streaming set up all ready to go now. I'm happy to jump in.
All right, cool. Well, that'll do it for us this week. We'll catch you again next time.
Bye.